This is the Lekker Rugby Pod with Harry Jones and MV Welman.
It's the Lekker Rugby Pod, episode 26. And Harry, we are building up a bit of a reputation and a following down in South America, it would seem like.
How's it, man? Yo, we're getting used as authority, like a citation, as Lekker Rugby Pod has pointed out. And what's funny is they're talking about us in Spanish using the word lekker, which is great. So the lekker, like centuries from now, generations from now, there'll be when the word lekker was first used in Argentina as a verb or a noun.
I love it. One of those Spanish guys, Argentinian guys, showed us how he does it. Switch on the subtitles and everything. So remember, guys, if you want to watch this in your own language, you can do it. YouTube somehow translates it on the fly. I'm not sure how that works, but I'm very happy that it does. So, Harry, I'm quite surprised. I mean, you went to Australia to watch the All Blacks play Australia. Why are you not here to watch the Springboks play Argentina and Nelspruit?
Yeah, I've been to 4 Boks tests this year. I was in Loftus and in Durban and then Ellis Park and then Cape Town. At some point, it turns into like a vice, an addiction. No? So I'm hoping to catch a Boks on the end of your tour, probably Twickenham, somewhere, I don't know, wherever.
Before we start with this game this weekend, I wanted to ask you, why is South Africa only playing 3 tests at the end of this year? The All Blacks are playing 5 and the Wallabies are playing 4. But we're only doing 3. And I mean, to a degree, I think it must have forced Russ's hands a bit in terms of his building his squad, building, test caps and everything else, don't you think?
I mean, sure, that'll be the argument about why we did what we did in Santiago. For me, I would never do that. First of all, I would go always to win any championship or cup when you can, as quick as possible. You never know about flu. You never know about bereavement. You never know about anything in life. Mm-hmm. So 1 week that goes by and you have your 7 top guys waiting and then something happens, So, yeah, I would never do that. However, it's true that the argument could be made that there's scarce tests in which to experiment. You have to get this data. It has to be achieved. It has to be arrived. And as Don Human has said about scrums, the only real scrum practice is an actual scrum. So the same thing is test rugby. The only way I can test you to see if you're a test match animal is to drop you into the cauldron that is test rugby. I get all that. And Jacques Nienaber is famous for saying there was a whole year lost, which created all kinds of turmoil. But yeah, I would always, I think that's sometimes retrospect. I would always bury the opposition. I want to party on your field. I want to get drunk in Santiago and then Buenos Aires on the train, on the plane. I want to rub it in because that's the kind of guy I am. A really good loser, but a horrible winner. And I think that's where I want the Boks to do, is to get to the point where we're comfortable being top dogs instead of always having to contrive these these moments of crisis, almost fabricated, where we have to have more excitement and drama. So now we're at the point where Argentina could actually win the rugby championship, where there was a thing to do on Santiago where it would have been done and dusted. Now it is theoretically, mathematically, infinitesimally, maybe minusculely possible, but it's still possible. And a card here, a card there, interesting ref interpretations, and suddenly we're all going to be grouping onto our scrutums like we're watching Manie kick. And I don't want that. I want clear dominance. I want some air at the top. I want number 1 ranking for the foreseeable future. And now we already lost it. So, I always watching that number 1 ranking because I love to watch the history of the world rankings and to see that long all black. And then there was moments of Springbok. And I want there to be a clear green, dark green, the proper green at the top of that for a while, like an era. I want this decade to have been more clear. And we still have these flippant Irish intruding into our party. So I don't like it. However, we are where we are now. We have to accept where we are now. We are the most pragmatic, intellectually honest podcast that there is in the world. I think that's true. I mean, who can disprove that? Who can disprove that?
Like I said, our humility is our best feature. So there we go. Listen, while you're talking about it, the world rankings, that rankles me a lot because, in my honest opinion, it's a bit contrived. I mean, you can't say the islands are suddenly number 1 and they're not even playing at the moment. I know how it works and the mechanics of it, and it's sort of okay and objective as much as it can be. But the fact that we're not playing and they're not playing, and next year in the Six Nations they're going to be playing and we're not going to be playing, it's always going to be a bit of a contrived ranking, don't you think?
It's a snapshot, so you'd have to look at it from the whole year, and hopefully we can get back there at the end of the year. I used to think it was bad. I think for the 4 or 5 years now, it's been pretty accurate. And if we didn't like it, then we have to remind ourselves we lost in Durban, and Durban is in South Africa, so it counts more when you lose at home. We have to win in Dublin. The solution is to win in Dublin and to never, ever, ever lose in South Africa again. That is achievable. You could create a whole fortress of a country. I don't care where you are. Let's go play and flipping on the Limpopo River. But, let's not lose again in South Africa for the foreseeable future.
That's a very good point. We forget that. Ireland is now number 1. But part of that's because Ireland beat us in South Africa. That like you said, that carries more weight than it does winning at home against another team or winning away against another team.
Yeah, and I think we are past excuses. And I do like that about Rassie. I think he's matured us into getting, I think he himself was too much excuses, and he was a Rassie excuse, and now he's not. He's a no excuses coach now. He takes on the blame. He puts the blame at his own feet. He correctly calls out players when they haven't shown physicality or ruthlessness. And I think as fans, we have to also grow up in that sense. It's like we have to beat Ireland in Ireland. We have to win the pool match. We have to win in Durban. We have to close out a match. We have a scrum and they're 22. We're up. We got to close that match out. And then we will indeed be known as number 1, unassailable, indisputable, no debate, just one of those dominance eras, which I think we're primed to do right now if we can just find that little extra, that little 1% we need.
Do you want to sell your car? We'll buy it quickly and easily. We'll make instant payment after fast valuation at unbeatable prices. Get a great offer and sell your car today. Southern Cars, the better way to buy and sell cars.
Okay, let's talk about this match coming up. And we'll talk about team selection, everything. But the important thing, the most notable thing here that we talked about is this is actually the first knockout match of 2024. True knockout match. If we lose this, we lose the championship. If we win it, or we become the champions. And you mentioned something interesting to me about how Rassie approaches these kind of games. He doesn't select the team to start with. He selects the team to end with. Just expand on that for me a bit.
Yeah, it is the first knockout match. There was a world in which we would have lost both matches to Ireland, for example, that would have really stung and hurt and made us feel sad. And we'd have thrown up in our mouths a lot. But it wouldn't have been the same ways if we lost this one. If we lost this one, the whole world of rugby would be jubilant at the fakeness. It would be Ben Smith's greatest day. It would be the jackals and hyenas would have started wailing up north. Everything would blow up in our face. So this is a no possible lose. Like there's no possible way that this thing can happen on home turf in Nelspruit to have an Argentinian party, right? So therefore it becomes, by virtue of not just the championship itself, the cup there on the table with the presentation waiting, it's a knockout. It's also a knockout because of the circumstances. And so then you realize when you do that, you instantly have to think about what was the scene at the knockouts in Stade de France a year ago? On your iPhone or whatever, you device you use, it says 1 year ago, or my pictures that came up 1 year ago, and had all these pictures of that merry, incredibly tense, joyful, exhilarating, and also anxious run in the knockouts. And so I just started thinking, this team that we see playing at Nelspruit, it looked remarkably similar to the one named in the semifinal versus England. And the more I thought about it, I just laid them down side by side, and you can see on my socials, I posted it, or I'll post it again.
I'll post it again.
Yeah, it's actually the same except for retirement or injury, with a couple of exceptions. So, you have Ox taking over the number 1 spot now over Kitsoff, who's still rehabilitating. So there's an injury, forced or might not be. But beyond that, you just work your way through. Bongi, France, Eben. Franco having an injury, so you have Rowan in, Peter Steff, Sia, and then you have the retirement of Dwayne and the natural successor who was groomed, who played in the final, Jasper Wiese. And then you have Manie starting. Now, a different 9 because of some injuries there. Kobus actually was on the starting, and then now he's on the bench. And then you have a very similar backline. Damien, Jesse, Kirtley, and Cheslin. And then you have on the bench, you have Andre, you have Vinny, you have Kwacha, you have a mainstay, the spine of the same bomb squad. And then you have injury changes. Archie is not there. And so you have Elrich Lowe, one of the great stories, and we'll cover him in a second. One of the big stories of 2024 is how Elrich Lowe has come through as a spine of the bomb squad now with Kwacha. Then you have Marks back, injured in the World Cup, and he would certainly have been there. So when it all comes down to it, about 19-ish or 20 of the 23 is the same. That means that the coaches recognize this is a knockout match. And so it's a knockout time. And it makes sense now, not just psychologically for Manie to be there. That's kind of the way they structured the knockout against England, thinking that it's probably going to be a tight game. And it's going to need to have different weather than there was in Paris, but still there's going to be a need to have that mentality of who's on the field at the end. I've started doing something different when I look at team sheets now. I look at the lineup named, always early on Tuesday-ish, and I just go straight to the end. I say, who's on my Bok team at the end? What's that look like at the end? It reminds me of when you look at a world map, and instead of looking at north to south, that prejudice of how Europeans made maps, and switch it around because there's no reason. The world is spinning around. There's no up and no down. If you just make Australia and the South Pole being the top and South Africa be the top, it's interesting. It changes your view of history. Even you look at the tides of history and the wars and everything and exploration. Same thing with naming a rugby team. There's no real reason for us to look at the elapse of time of 80 minutes and only focus on that first cagey 30 minutes when nothing usually happens except for a few penalties. And you can never put a team away, even if you're 17-0 up, as we saw in Santiago. You don't really win the match. You can start to lose it maybe, but you don't really win it in the first hour. But you tend to win matches in the final 20. So why are we not looking at the winning team composition, the team that is going to win the match composition, that 15 more than the first? So I've started doing that. I write down immediately, okay, so I've got Steenekamp, I've got Marks, I've got Vinny, I've got Elrich Lowe on there with somebody. Is it Peter Steff? Is it Eben? Who goes 80? Is it Ruan? I try to formulate it. I know Kwacha's going to be on there. Probably going to ask Jasper to go 80. It'll be Kobus and Andre. Now, where's Manie? Is he off? Does he stay on? Where does Lucanio Arm fit in? And I try to formulate that team. And once I do that and I have my 15 and I realize Fassi's on, wow, big moment for him. One of those two centers is giving way. They can all play wing, right? Damien started at wing. Jesse Creel's played a lot of wing. So there's mix and match there. But I still force myself to do that. And it makes me realize this is a hard nut. We would prefer to have another lock. We wish we'd have another lock. But besides that, this is not a bad team to finish with. And if I work back from there, I'm not as nervous. I don't think we miss kicks. I don't think we miss too many tackles. I think we're hard at the set piece. I think our breakdown is phenomenal with Marks, Kwacha, Steenekamp, Lowe. Wiese is also not bad. Our center's Jackal. So there's enough there. There's two big questions, which I guess we'll cover. Is where's Billy? In the semifinal against England, it was Billy coming on, where he is grumpy, choreographing, band directing self, just telling everyone where to be, telling the English where to be at the end. And so now we have Fassi. So that's a big difference. And then we have this floating Lucanio arm issue. So those are the two issues for me, Mvia, that puzzle me a little bit. And I guess we're going to have some questions will be resolved soon. But on the rest, it looks like it's a knockout match, just like in the rain at Stade de France. This is a knockout-looking team.
Well, let's start with the obvious. Number one, it's a 5-3 bench. Same as, like you said, in semi-final, so they're going a bit more conservative. But like, the most important thing to me, and I didn't notice it until you really pointed it out to me. I noticed it, but I didn't think about it, is Willie should have been there. As far as I know, Willie's not injured. And with Willie being on the bench rather than I'm being on the bench, you open many more possibilities. I wonder what the story is with Willie, because I know they're trying to get him to 100 tests. And this is quite a sitter almost for him to just, slot in from the bench and maybe finish it out. Maybe the stakes are too high to take a chance. Maybe he's got a bit of a thing still, if they had injuries he's been suffering. I wonder what the story is there, because we're going to miss him.
Yeah, I don't. So that is the biggest question I've got on this this lineup is when I go to the end first and I try to work backwards. Game management. So I've got Kobus, I've got Andre, I've got a very seasoned back line. You're always going to trust any of Dialende, Creel, or This is nothing, right? Everyone knows where they are. Everyone knows who's who. It's Fassie that you would imagine if he's having an off day that you'd want to have an ability to bring someone in like for like at fullback and say, no, we got this. Is it if you're not fielding kicks well, if you're not putting the right territory on your kicks, and if you're not providing enough playmaking from the back, especially when you bring Andre on, the Andre-Willie axis, if you will, has been successfully proved in so many knockout matches and so many test matches. So it makes you wonder if there's a physical issue, and the Boks are pretty good at not telling you things until later. It's a bit like they said Sasha shouldn't tell us if he's injured. They're also good if you do tell them that, they don't leak it to the press that much. They kind of keep it quiet. So it could literally be just a niggle. Willie's at the stage of his career now where he's walking around with niggles. His name is probably Nigel LaRue. So, you just get to a point in time, we've all been there, right? Where everything hurts longer and things don't heal as much. I do think they see a point of difference with Fassie against the Pumas. There were moments, you saw it at Santiago, where he has like actual speed edges. And there were also moments where he was defending where I thought he could have done better. But I went back and watched it and I corrected myself. He put himself into positions because of his speed that he was able to do things where he had options, whereas most other fullbacks would have just been happy to be in the picture. He and Willems are both very, very quick for fullbacks. So, I think they might be looking at that. It still begs the question on why arm instead of a fullback cover. And so I don't know that. And also, we shouldn't always imagine that our heroes know everything and they're infinitely wise. Sometimes they just mess up, right? So maybe this is a mess up. Maybe they should have picked Willie. I don't know. Yeah. I would pick Willie for this if he's healthy, because it has him written all over it. Nelspruit, the decider, the big moment. He loves that stuff. I can see him doing 2 or 3 try assists out of nothing and having that ironic smirk at the end and just giving it in the ear of Pablo Matera, just telling him about his origin and my origin and what his mother did last weekend. I want Willie on the end. Now, maybe Fassie's got that too, the weekend special. He looks like he got a bit of edge to him too. So I wouldn't mind him rubbing it in at the end. There was a lot of rubbing in going on at Santiago. All joy and credit to Argentina, but I do think also to the victor, the spoils. And so I want us to spoil their party this weekend.
Something I want to ask you something that might be a bit of a left field question, but a lot of voices have been going up about Manie. Maybe he's playing at 15 rather than 10. With his vision and his ability to open up gaps and make gaps. What about Andre coming on and then Manie moving to 15 and Fassie moving? Maybe that's the thinking behind not bringing Willie on.
Yeah, so one of the reasons why it's difficult to do my little game, and I would encourage everyone to do it, get the team sheet and immediately go to minutes 70 to 80 and do it, is there's really so many permutations. Almost all the guys we can mention now have played other positions. So all the number 9s can play more than 9. Yeah. They've shown that. Grant Williams looks like a really good wing sometimes. You go, well, he could be a wing. And Kobus has got the speed to play across the back line. Andre definitely can play 12. You play 12 as well as Owen Farrell can, guys. I mean, you can always point to 1 or 2 missed tackles. Andre can play 12. Mornay Stain was a guy you always thought you could play 10 and 15 equally. There's a lot of 10-15 guys. Yeah, Manie could do that. Manie has good coverage. He reads kicks well. He's good in the air. He has 2 kicks. He has 2 feet. You would think he has, an ability to see the break. We sometimes build him up too much because we want to. We want to create a story about Manie. Why? Because he's a guy we instinctively love. Something about his face. It's self-effacing. It's humble. He looks like a guy who would always be your best man on the crew. Like the guy would stay late. He wouldn't be puffed up. And so the thing about him is, because sometimes he's suffered on a very important and essential skill for a fly-off who has the tee, which is to close out and not be what he has been. He has been a 45% to 60% kicker. That range doesn't fly. It's not okay. It's so far below Pollard's 85 down to 80% that it's, statistically, it's almost like, there's a no-brainer there. So sometimes you want to invent a fiction around Manie, is that, but he's so brilliant at creating breaks and all that. But where's the evidence at test level of all those tries? And even if you want to point to the no-look thing in Scotland, I mean, it's a low-scoring game. The real story about that game is defensive. We destroyed Finn Russell. He only had 1 real break in the whole match. So it was those test rugby. It like diminishes the Manie-ness of it all, because it's not like Stormer Ball where you have 4, 5, 6 tries. You don't have that many. It always does come down to small moments and the ability to squeeze and to get over the gain line and to take contact sometimes. I presented a series of facts about how Handré Pollard is one of the ultimate knockout 10s because he doesn't mess up. He's a great runner in contact. He keeps possession of the ball. He's like having another Damien. So you have Handré and Damien running at you. You can get over the gain line. Manie has to learn that in test rugby, a lot of it is also just keeping yourself alive. But we do like to invent the story that it's all fireworks when he's on. When, in Santiago, there was 3 points produced while he was on at 10. Okay? So it's not a question of, we'll bring him on and we'll run. No, Handré was creating tries. Like, he flipped that try to Rassie perfectly. It was on target. There were 3 others where he put people in space, which led to big moments and breaks, and a couple of them ended up as tries. So we have to look at this thing honestly on the evidence. I think the way that we look at this is versatility. I think the Boks coaches have imagined a world in which there are injuries and there are cards, and the 6 players besides scrum-halves can all mix around and cover any eventuality. I think they would love, however, more than anything else, is not to have a flipping card. Like, how about a Boks test this year where there's not a card? And let's see if we can, tell our young guys like Rassie and those guys, it doesn't matter sometimes. You don't have to go that extra, you can sometimes just take the penalty and just let that be. We don't need to always have to switch our backline around. But 5-3 does cover it. Three people on the bench from the back line covers any eventuality. We don't have to sit there with bated breath, waiting for that one thing and go, oh my God, is Dion Fourie going to have to play, wing? So I think we're okay there.
Well, we'll talk about Manie a bit more just now. I just want to finish this thing about the bench. And the one person you said standout player in terms of, putting his name forward and pick me, coach, and then, he got picked and he's proven his worth is Ulrich Lowe. Tell me about that thinking.
So emotionally as well as physically, and possibly even technically, Ulrich Lowe was put through a ringer. He was told to go away. He was told, like Rassie and his crew, they do some really tough things with people. I think they know who can handle it, or maybe they just want to know who can handle it. But I'll say this about Rassie and his ability to be very sentimental and long-suffering and forgiving about some players more than others, is he tends to be more that way when there's not that many people stacked up to take the place. So fly off, we're kind of lean. Right now we have a lock crisis. But in loose forwards do grow on trees all over South Africa. and many of them are leading the Premiership and not picked. I could name off 8 guys right now playing the Premiership who are the best players in their teams, beloved, and routinely challenged for Team of the Year, and are not even in the Bok picture. So Rassie knows he can tell Ivan Roos and Elrich Louw to stuff off. You're too much, you're too vinchat. You remind me of me when I got so full of myself. Look at me. Look, here's a story of Rassie. Tell him a parable where he's both the star and the villain and all this, and see what it does to their psyche. You're too much this, you're too much that. Elrich Louw just quietly, like a sheriff in the Wild West, practiced shooting bottles. Just came back better. And Ivan Roos got into some metaphorical guys, not real, metaphorical saloon fights, and ended up, nowheres. So I think there's something about Elrich Louw that Rassie likes. He likes guys that are different from him. I think he likes people who are opposite to him. And then he puts people who are like him at fullback. But I think he wants the forwards to be, like the guys he looked up to, the guys he wasn't in dispatch, the guys who didn't go out on the joel. So I think Elrich Louw is one of those guys, just a straight arrow, clean shaven. He looks like, he's the boy that you can trust, with your daughter, your sister. And he gets over the gain line. He fills in. He hasn't had any fall-offs. Marco van Staden had, I think, a pretty bad game a week ago. And so maybe in the sweepstakes of who is the most reliable bomb squad guy besides Kwacha, it looks like Elrich Louw has that mantle. There's an argument, though, it's about the lock crisis. So the great lock crisis forces the number 19 player to sort of be a lock flank. But it also means that Elrich Louw did beat Ben Jason Dixon in the end. So Ben Jason Dixon, I thought, also had a stormer of a couple of games. Then he had a tough game. And then I think what we saw about him is that his activity, his motion, but we have to never confuse mere motion with action. Confusing motion with action, is that age-old problem where you just see a guy running around, pell-mell. But you want to make sure that it's effective and that it has efficacy. And it's like, I'm almost going to call him efficacy low, because he's just efficacious. Everything he does makes a difference. I start to watch him differently than I watched Ben Jason Dixon. I marvel at Ben Jason's ability to, he's like that dog in the chasing line that's like the tongue hanging out and always gets there. And Elrich is that dog that's just behind and then gets the throat. And I do like him.
Now, Ben Jason Dixon, I think, was a bit exposed in terms of his technique. I told you I spoke to Andre Pretorius. We did a lot of analysis. You must watch that video at the 80 Boks podcast. We did technical stuff there. And Ben Jason Dixon has got a few technical flaws that he's going to have to work on a lot. And I think Elrich Louw has far fewer. I'm not saying he's perfect, but he definitely has far fewer. And you look at the composition of the bench, the front row is self-explanatory. The back three is self-explanatory. The pivotal players on the bench is Kwacha and whoever else is there. And it's Elrich. And you said that's the team that's going to close out this championship. And the fact that he was selected there, forget about the lock crisis and everything else. He was chosen, Elrich Louw. Says a lot about that player, I think.
Yeah, so if you say this is the first knockout match of 2024, and it is, the fact you have, who do I trust? Pollard, obvious. Vincent Koch, obvious. Malcolm Marx, obvious. Kwacha, nailed on. Elrich Louw is in there. I mean, I would think from a year ago, if he and his dad are sitting around the braai and they're talking about what they did, depending on how he plays in Nelspruit, he will have made a name for himself. And I say depending because it's really a big depends, right? Minute 3, Elrich Louw gets carded. Now we're talking about him as the bad goat instead of the good one. I think there's an awful lot riding on it. And I think what the coaches are saying is they trust his ability, Elrich's ability to manage the mind. They definitely trust and they admire Ben Jason's ability to pick a line from ruck to ruck, but they wonder about his ability to manage his emotions and his decisions. Same thing for Marco. Same thing for Ivan. So these are things that you get downgraded on from the mind more than the body.
Calculate your monthly vehicle finance. We offer customizable finance plans tailored to your budget. Easy application, expert assistance. To learn more, visit sithandcars.co.za. Sithan Cars, the better way to buy and sell cars.
All right, now let's talk about the obvious thing that everybody's talking about. And you mentioned that Rassie might be a bit more, I don't know what the word is, considerate of the players that he doesn't have that much depth in that position specifically. You said loose forwards out of dime a dozen. At the moment, fly-halves are not that common in South Africa. We have a couple of them, but they weren't really involved. Siya Masuku was involved in one camp from what I remember. Jordan Hendricks started against Wales, didn't play well, sort of got shown the door. So there aren't that many options now with Sasha being injured and everything. So do you think that's part of the reason why Rassie is now sort of giving Manie another chance and professing to stand behind him? And like you said earlier, taking it on the chin on behalf of Manie. Is that a philanthropic thing, or is it just maybe more of a pragmatic thing?
Oh, there's so many angles here, and people are very emotional about Manie.
Yeah.
There's something. Why is that? I wonder, because some people have been discarded over far less, and no one's beating the drum. And if you discuss those people that have been dropped, no one gets mad at you and accuses you of terrible things, starts ascribing terrible motives to you and so forth. But with Manie, they do. So that always makes me wonder. I go, so I'm attracted to that. I'm like, interesting. What does that psychology suggest? And I think there's a few things going on here. Number one, I like Manie. How do you not like Manie? Likability is a really powerful thing in life. And people rally to your cause when you seem like an honest, humble, self-effacing young man who's trying to do their best. There's a sadness to him. It looks like one of those, almost those old paintings in the medieval times of a suffering martyr. You know, there's a martyrdom to his approach to the tee. We know he's going to miss. He sets it up. We start to do almost a cadence. There's almost a liturgy to it, you know. It's almost like those old monks. Like, he's going to miss. Like, we're going to cry. We're all going to cry in a minute. We're going to cry together. And then he does it. And he does this thing that we say he's not going to do just this one more time. And he does it again. And so we all go into our little monk singing again. And then we feel bad about ourselves. We feel bad for him. Manie was, dropped for the World Cup final. And I've never seen a person take that better in sport. He was just so supportive. He's never once put off any kind of bad vibe about his own position. And so, ultimate teammate. That counts for a lot in Rassie land. That counts for a lot in any good team. I would imagine that Rassie Erasmus loves Manie Limbok as a man, as a person, as a young lad, in his scheme. And that he knows Manie hasn't had a lot of tests. He's really, less than 20 still. So, that careers take a while to develop, especially kicking. Kicking is, someone put a great comment on socials this week about in the ultimate team sport, the quintessential team sport like rugby, kicking for poles is the only time it becomes an individual sport. It's team, suddenly individual. You're a golfer on the 18th tee of the British Open. You're up by 2, and you got to stick one in the fairway, and the wind is howling. It's just you. Your caddy has to go away. Your swing coach, your thought coach, your nutrition coach, everyone's gone. It's just you. And you have to nail it and make it the Ryder Cup. Maybe it's even worse. Your team is depending on you, but it's still an individual swing. So I think Rassie knew that he would kill Manie Limbok's career forever if he dropped him this time. I think by putting him back on, he gets 4 or 5 easy kicks, maybe 2 or 3 easy kicks and a couple of hard ones. They can decide what to do about those hard ones if enough attack has been developed and they can blow Argentina away early. If they're up 17-0 again, for example, there are some kicks you can turn down. Maybe there's even an ability to sort of get around the fact that a kick is needed. A kick wins a rugby match somewhere between 5.7% of the time and about 10, right? And it's hard to put that variable down with precision because of the kick to the corner version. So, but it does come down to the idea of a kick about, 1 out of 10 times. And so that what that means is in the 90% of the other games, you don't even have to get there. So Rassie's gambling, the Riverboat Gamblers gambling that Manie won't face that. And he's also hedging that bet by saying, and I will make sure it's not him. It's going to be Andre that will face that, that dry mouth pressure at the end. So Manie, drive my attack, score tries, do what Andre just did, get up 17-0, but then keep going. And when you hand over the reins, even if you stay on, you will not have to worry about that narrative anymore. You'll be the guy who won the knockout match for me. And I think Rassie wants Manie to be the man of the match. I think he loves his players that much. I think Rassie knows that Andre is always self-secure about his place in history in the Boks. I think he wants Manie to have his day in the sun. And so in that way, I applaud him. Rassie manages the men, as you pointed out so many times. He manages the player, and then he relies on Don and Stick and Jerry and Tony to handle the technicalities of the play, of the game, of the, what I do. But just the man himself, when he has no time for you, when he's done with you, Rassie is done with you, right? But when he is invested in you and you're part of his story and you're part of his adrenaline and you give him serotonin, Rassie is on a job with you and he will take you on a ride. And the only time I met Rassie, I could tell, and he delayed. He was being called to go through security, but he wanted to figure out who I was and what's going on. And he knew some people I knew. And then he was talking about, when I played and when he played. He is a guy who's incessantly curious about other people, about how he can be with them, use them, understand them, be used by them, and be inside their story. I think we have underestimated the complexity of Rassie. I think you're dealing with a guy right now that's taken over rugby in South Africa. He is standing like a colossus above it all. He is permitted to play games with in Santiago. He took a team knowing that it was just going to win by the skin of our underpants or not, when he could have just buried the thing, and it's okay. And now he's putting Manie right back on the field. Like you got kicked off the horse, get right back on the horse. Otherwise, the horse is never going to love you again and respect you. So I applauded that. But it does mean that, let's say the first kick for poles for Manie is exactly from the same spot. Exactly from the same spot. And that happens a lot, because the spot he missed from is actually almost one of the most common places to be penalized at. We're all going to have our hearts in our mouths again.
Certain Cars has a wide selection of vehicles available at certaincars.co.za and at our branches at Casino and Mainland. With over 30 years of trust and excellence, Certain Cars is your #1 nationwide dealership. With over 95% customer satisfaction, our hand-picked cars will ensure that you find your dream car from one of the top brands available at Certain Cars. Certain Cars, the better way to buy and sell cars.
I want to talk to you about Rassie's complexity a bit more. I would say complexity in inverted commas. Sometimes there's a perception of Rassie maybe being a bit arrogant, sending a B team or C team to Argentina. Lots of things about, tried things. But like you said in the beginning, he should have put it away. He should have made sure of the victory and then experimented, not the other way around. And the other guy we mentioned, you don't talk about Manie, because you either do this or do that, or do so much of that and too little of that. And Rassie is the same thing. People don't like you questioning anything that Rassie does. Rassie is sort of believed in, unequivocally, no questions asked. And I want to talk to you about that. Is that right to do it like that? Can we not question him? Is Rassie always right, or does Rassie also make mistakes every now and again? And is there a bit of a touch of, let's call it, overconfidence rather than arrogance?
Well, so I like it. I like all inquiry. I like skepticism. I like dissent. I think every society that ever went forward and any movement, any renaissance was brought upon by people who asked different questions. You could Rassie, just like his ancestor Erasmus in Holland, was faulted for doing new things and different things. So we're the same. So if we're questioning things, we're doing the same thing Rassie would do. Rassie rails against the powers and the establishments and the conventional wisdom. Everyone who worked with him in Ireland calls him a genius, like a literal genius. So it's hard to not be arrogant when you're a genius. It's hard to, like, John McEnroe apparently did see the ball better than everyone else. So he actually was filthy because he was right. I went back and looked at the footage. He was almost always right. So Rassie is right a lot, and he does make good calls, and he does see things in players that other people don't, and he does see edges in the rules. He understands the rules backwards and forwards. It's like a great writer can break the rules of grammar because he understands the rules of grammar. Before Picasso was, abstract, he could paint the vases and the fruit better than everyone else. So there's something about that I'm fine with. Question everything. Why not? I like Rassie in a way because I feel affinity towards him. I feel like I've had a life that's had in a smaller scale in some ways different and bigger, similar pathways. I like Manie because he's really different from me. I like Manie because he is the kind of guy that I never was. And so I can love both of these guys, and they're both, shining examples of the new South Africa. So I love it. That being said, it's not bad to criticize and look at something and analyze it. That's the nature of an analyst. You're a terrible analyst if you have sacred cows. Terrible. You never invent anything. If you always follow what is the proper thing, conventional, and you stay with it, you're never going to get anywhere. So Rassie didn't do that. In some ways, why does Manie do a no-look kick against Scotland? Does he have to no-look, or could he have looked? Well, he did it because it was flash. It was fun. So, guys, come on, everyone calm down. We break rules. We do weird stuff because it's fun. I think Rassie does invent little situations for himself that are difficult. I do the same thing, sometimes when I go into a hard interrogation, I'll invent words I have to say that don't make any sense just because I want to make it harder. It's so easy to break someone. Make it harder to break someone. Let me invent a few hurdles for me to get over. Why? I don't know. I just like adrenaline. I like danger. I like to drop, into Honduras with an axe and try to figure out how to open a gold mine that's closed. Why? I don't know. It's something fatally flawed about me. Rassie's going to be this way until he dies, guys. He's always going to drive you crazy. But, if we weren't talking about what it is he's doing, then we're insane too. So we have to pick it apart. He holds a position that is enshrined because he holds a position in trust for the people of South Africa, for the country of South Africa. And when South Africa has an ability to close out a championship, to win it in the 4th or 5th round instead of the 6th round, he has to do it. And because it's that serious, and also because test caps shouldn't be handed out for fun or for manipulation. So that's all fair game. I think Rassie would take that on the chin. Every time an old Oom has said that to him, he's like, no, I respect you, thank you. I'll do my best. And it's not always like taking the shit either. I think he actually, I think Rassie does listen to people. And I think he tries to do a good job. It's just that he's a bit mad. And in the best possible way. I think he's a bit of a mad character, and I think he'd be the first one to say that. After a few brandies and you're doing the cargo pants shuffle, he's going to tell you. He might tell you, I'm a madman. He might say that to you, and but I'm good at rugby, and I know how to do rugby. So what's interesting about Rassie is, with all that craziness, he has built the best succession chart in world rugby. And part of the way you do that is you try to get your third man. Everyone knows their first man. Some teams might know their second. Rassie's getting to the point where he knows Elrich's my third man, or, Nortje is my third man. Like, he's finding these third stringers, you call them C team. He says, I like to be able to call on 28 players as if it doesn't matter. Like, I got 20 players where if you just blindfold me, we shake them out and throw them on the ground and, backs and forward, different bags. I'm okay with that team. I'm okay. We can win. It might be harder to win with this group of 15 than that group of 15. But I think Rassie is getting to the point where he has that. And so critical to that success is Manie. Manie is the third string now, fly off. He's not the starter anymore. He's starting, but he's not the starter, right? He's in the sense of who's my best fly off. And that's valuable because Manie is better than everyone else's third string. And he just needs to correct this kicking issue. On the kicking issue, you could say, well, Harry, how could you correct kicking issue in 1 week? And I don't think you can. So I don't think anyone should look at this next match as being the fix. If he bangs over 5 from 5, it's not fixed. But a good off season with there's people in South Africa. I know a guy who has been able to fix people's kicking strike and action. Just go outside, not even necessarily have to stay inside the camp. There are people who can sit down with you if you want to, and they can fix that. And so, I think he needs to do it.
Two words that go together all well is mad and genius. So Rassie's a bit of a mad genius. I want to say that. But I also think he's a performative genius in the sense that he plays a role. That dancing next to the braai with the wine and the jacket and the
jacket that won't zip up and won't zip down.
Because the zip is stripped. You know what I'm talking about. Just this picture that he's painting, and he does it deliberately. And that's where the madness and the genius sort of, intersects. And what he does by that, he like you said earlier, he takes a lot of the attention away from the players because people talk about Rassie. You and I are talking about Rassie right now, not the team so much. And that takes the spotlight off it, and it takes the pressure off them to a degree. You don't talk about Joe Schmidt dancing next to the braai or Scott Robinson at bathroom when he's break dancing and the likes. You see, where I'm going with this. And that's part of his charm almost, the fact that he does stand up for his players. And like he very eloquently and very publicly stated this week in that press conference, he backs Manie. He might have made a mistake here or there, but he backs Manie. So now people say, what's Rassie saying? It's not what's Manie doing. And that's part of his charm and his genius, if you want to call it that, don't you think?
I'm here for it. I think it's great entertainment, and I think rugby needs more of that. You look at the report that just came out about the Premiership, and only 3 of the clubs were solvent. Part of the problem for insolvency in rugby is that the personalities of the game are not allowed to shine. And in the minute anyone does anything different or odd or steps out of line, it's like the head boy, the prefects, and the principal, cane you, and you get you back in line. And then we go back to insolvency. Solvency requires merch. Solvency requires big personalities, Tom Brady's, dynasties. It requires swag. It requires 3 jerseys every year that change all the time. It requires deals, agents, players that are big enough to tell a coach to hump it, player power, player unions, all of that. That's when you get to the big. So in my mind, Rassie is an avatar. He's a pioneer. And I think he was too much at first. I think he's found the right calibration. When I was in Australia, Australians hated him because Nick Berry was the object of his video. Now, just take your, sample size of 200 people that I talked to. 180 of them say he's a genius, love him, wish they had Rassie. There might be 10 old codgers that are still talking, I don't like that video he did, but everyone's moved on. So my point is, he is someone who's consequential. He's a consequential figure in the sport. And he shows the path forward, which is it's not the old, blazer guys around the fire in a back room full of smoke at Stellenbosch. It's a guy from Dispatch who wears the wrong stuff, says the wrong things, ruffles the wrong feathers, and look at him now. He's got South Africa on the verge of the best era ever in South African rugby in a long and storied history, one of the great nations of rugby. And he's at the precipice of taking it to the next level of domination. Now, can we get there? It's tough because when you're on top, everyone's aiming for you. Get everyone's best match against you. Argentina has studied us to the nth degree. They're living and breathing. You look at the guys who follow us from Argentina, how obsessed they are. It's like how we've always been with the All Blacks. They're like that, like, oh, and so tell us the intricacies of how Damon Nyalende and Jesse Creel speak without speaking, like stuff we don't even know about. We're like, no, it doesn't really happen. We just, they just run hard. It's like every little thing now. It's like an author that writes a book and doesn't really know what he's writing. He just, wants to write a book, and then it gets picked up somewhere in Japan. In Japan, they're studying the book because it's got themes. They go, come explain to us chapter 13. And the author's like, I don't know what I was saying there. And so I think there's something about Springbok rugby right now that's appealing to places like Argentina, Chile, Portugal. The people are following Springbok rugby in a way that the world used to follow New Zealand rugby. And a lot of it is they talk about the bomb squad now. They talk about how Rassie does things. What's the Rassie way? That's hilarious to us, right? Because we know a lot of it Rassie is pulling out of his arse. But there's a cheekiness to him, and a lot of it is like invention. They say a lot of it's luck. Like, you just happen into things. I mean, do you really know that Ruan Norche is going to be the guy he is, this season? Not really. He could have gone the other way. And so, Rassie is having a good time. I do think it was interesting. The only time I've seen him mad or grumpy or really upset in the box in this whole year was last week. Like, he looked really properly steamed. Up until then, it's been fun and parties. It's been like wrestling matches with Tony and, little punch-ups with Jerry, and it's been all fun and games. It looks like to me, when that backfired, when that kick didn't go over, that shit got horribly real. And so I would expect we're going to see a proper performance, and that we're going to do some RG bashing.
I want to take one step back and just give some credit where it's due. You mentioned earlier that like the NFL have got these superstars and everything else. And rugby never had that before. But for South African rugby, to allow Rassie to, number one, become the coach, stay the coach, and be who he is, says a lot. It's taken a lot. Remember Jake White got fired after he won the World Cup. And, things like that. And Nick Mallett got fired because he complained about ticket prices and the likes. That's no longer there. There's a new... I wouldn't say younger generation because it's young guys, but it's a new mindset in South African rugby, and we're reaping the benefits of that. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, Nick Mallett, following one of the greatest winning streaks in history, gets the can. Someone else wins a World Cup, gets the can. It was almost like the more successful you were, the more you were distrusted. Unless you were like Dr. Donnie Craven and you had, you were the insider's insider. There's always been a political angle. I think Rassie's played the politics really well. I think he understands the new politics. Inherently and inextricably linked with Rassie are two players. One is Eben Etzebeth, and one is Siya Kolisi. And the fact is that Siya and Eben's friendship, which appears to be completely and utterly genuine, these two guys like love each other like blood brothers. So you progress from the old Bakkies and Victor and Blow Bulls and all that stuff, and now you're getting into a new South Africa where you have this mad clown, mad genius at the helm, and in every team picture now he's got Eben on one side and Siya on the other, and they're like just having a good time. And they're giggling in a way that no other coaches and players would ever have done, from under 14s all the way up. You never saw that kind of camaraderie between coach and player. There was always a remove. There was almost a, I am above you, you will follow me, and you keep yourself in line, keep yourself in check. And the irreverence and the spontaneity and the joy of a new South Africa that's exemplified by these three guys, one, the most capped lock ever, Siya Kolisi, the most successful Bok test captain, who would have been unthinkable as a Bok captain ever when he was a kid. And then Rassie, this sort of anti-establishment guy who didn't come from the right schools. I think this is perfect. Eben wasn't from the right school either. Siya would have been nowhere unless he was actually noticed and welcomed. And now he does his best to welcome everyone else. In Australia, when I was just driving around and talking to people, they all brought up Siya. They said, "Oh, what a man. I love to hear him speak. I like to see the Springboks win because I want to see what he says when they win. Yeah, that's interesting. It's a worldwide brand. So I do think there's a lot to be said for this, and we never want to be too negative, but I think we always want to keep our credibility when we say, this should have already been done. I would have liked to see a celebration in Santiago for the Springboks winning, but now we are in a point where it's a must win, and there's something incredible about that feeling. It's not like a year ago, my pictures, but it does bring back a little bit of that tingly sensation, a little bit of nervousness right now. And I just want to get a good start. I want to get that first hour in, and then I want us to do that blow away, period of time, the 5th, 6th chukker, where you look at, from minute 55 to 70 or so. And then it'll be fun to see some of those players actually express themselves. I want Rassie to have a little more go forward, because I think he's got the burn on those guys. I don't think any of those RGs can keep up with Rassie if he has a little bit of a seam. So hopefully Creel or Arm can put him through.
Talking about, you mentioned that the squad that's on the field at the end of the game is pretty similar to what we saw against in the semifinal against England and the likes, but some of them are injury enforced, and one of those injuries is Faf. And I'm talking about, we had 4 scrum halves at the World Cup last year, and now we basically down to 2 because of injuries. And then Jaden starts and Kobus off the bench. But let's say Faf is now back to his old self, and Grant is back to his old self. What's his future, do you think, for us at 9?
The depth chart at 9 is the most complicated. When I have the most current depth chart, and you can almost see exactly who's 1, 2, 3. There's a few things you can quibble on, like at hooker, who really is the 1 or 2. It doesn't really matter. But my point is, the first 2 lines. At 9, you have 4 players, and there's much more of a horses for courses. So it depends on who you want to play and how you want to play. Faf has a very particular brand. He would have been very nice in Santiago because he's such a good defensive and attacking defensive scrum off. He gets behind enemy lines. He would have split some of those attacks. He would have hit someone's, just taken their head off. I mean, even if he got carded, but there would have been an end to the attack. Faf is really good at making the other team throw bad passes that spill on the ground and someone else scoops them up. So I think if you want to mayhem, Faf's still your man. The closest one to that, I guess, is Grant, because he will scurry around a little bit too. But Kobus and Jaden don't do that so much. They play off the action a little bit more. I could see a case for all those guys being made right now. And interestingly enough, to me, it looks like Kobus is sort of now being seen as the stabilizer, whereas once upon a time, Kobus was the kind of the wild man.
The disruptor.
And then Jaden, and then Jaden now looks like the game manager. So it's very interesting to me. I don't think in 9 we can say there's a true depth chart anymore. I think if we were playing this match right now and Faf was healthy, if they were all healthy, I think Faf would get one of those 2 slots.
All right. Sorry, and one last question I wanted to ask you about 8th man. I know Visa is the incumbent and he starts most of the games, and Lowe is coming off the bench and but I was wondering in terms of the future, where Rus is going to fit in and where Hanekom is going to fit in, because definitely both of those must have a future in the Springbok camp. Just sort of you said depth charts and pecking order and the likes. Where do you see them slotting into which position?
With the caveat that the Springboks have gotten away from depth charts, the sanctity of depth charts, in the same way that, say, New Zealand still holds to, you are a starter and then everyone else is not as good. We might not use you. If you're on the bench, you're going to get used, and you might be used in a more strategic way. I still think Jasper going 80 in some of these matches, going 80 at Santiago and actually being the most effective carrier from a starting. Ox had some really good carries, but he was on the move. Jasper was used in some cases to save the day. He was the settler. There were a couple of moments where he had to settle down a crumbling, disintegrating situation. And Jasper, because he's not going to get pushed out. You cannot take him and put him where he doesn't want to be. He is going to sit his arse down exactly where he wants the next ruck to be, and you cannot lift him. He's the most unliftable guy on the team. He gives you exactly what you want every time the way you want it, if that makes sense. Like, so it's not glory ball, but it's something about that that's important in a match. It always is important in a match. There's always a moment in a test match where you go, nothing's really working. We've got to have one more carry. This carry is going to really suck. Like, when you have this carry, you're not going to like it. You're going to feel sick. You're going to feel sad, and you're going to hurt for 3 days because of this carry. Jasper? Yeah. So that's the guy. That's the guy who takes the unpalatable job, the jobs you don't want. And so that's not Ruiz. I don't think Ruiz has accepted that role yet. You know, like, stick your head in this pipe under the house and see if there's I don't know what kind of reptiles
a raccoon in there.
Right. So Elric seems like he has some of that mentality, but he has to learn to carry it a little bit lower. He has to get a little bit lower in the carry, and then Hanekom is actually very attractive for the future. I think for now it's Jasper. I think Jasper has the stripes to prove it, the scars, the wounds, and there's something about that for an 8. Just talking about an 8 right now, where you have to make the carries that no one else wants to do.
Yeah, but also again, it's horses for courses. I can't see Visa and Hanekom, for example, are they're too different. So one will play a certain type of game, the other will play a different type of game. They'll be used where they need it most. Like they're not. It's not the one or the other. It's one or it's but either or. If you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah. So on the biggest question that faces South African rugby right now, which is beating Ireland, especially in Ireland, but just beating them, just beating the hell out of them. I mean, beating them where they stop talking, they shut up, and we can shove them out of the way. I kind of like Hanekom. I like Hanekom and players like him against Ireland because, A, we haven't tried that yet. And there's a point of difference there where, Caelan Doris and Josh van der Fleer, they have something that is very, they're very speedy. They're speedy loose forwards, and they have good breakaway speed. They have good mental speed. And so in some ways, I kind of want to see a guy like Hanekom and Lowe and Sia, on a loose forward, just stress them out on carrying, Peter Stafford lock and have just a speed team and see what that looks like. Because we keep trying the same thing. Like, we're gonna make you prove you can be as physical, and I think they've proved they can. I think the pool match was the greatest example of that. Durban as well. It broke all of our arms and legs. So maybe we do something different there. But I want to beat them. I want to beat them properly, handsomely in Dublin. I want to be there in Dublin, and I want to be walking to every single pub and remind everyone that night about what happened.
Sort of like we did at Loftus when we beat Leinster, don't you think?
Yes, that scrum. It was that scrum foretold the scrum at Loftus again. And I think those two scrums right there, where Furlong was pushed into smithereens, and then Andrew Porter, I guess at the end, I think he came back on at Loftus. Those are proper. Yeah, I like those. But I just think there's options for speed at loose forward that South Africa have that I think they've been doing to us. I think Josh van der Fleer and Caelan Doris in particular have been having very good games against the Boks because they've been a little bit quicker than the opposition.
Yeah.
Do you want to sell your car? We'll buy it quickly and easily. We'll make instant payment after fast valuation at unbeatable prices. Get a great offer and sell your car today. Sithen Cars, the better way to buy and sell cars.
Just one last thing, we have these Argentinian followers, so let's just talk about Argentina quickly, briefly. I'm worried, and I've said it in another podcast, they tend to be hot or cold. So now against All Blacks, they won hot, and then they were cold the next weekend. Australia was the other way around. They lost the first one, but they just blew them away in the second one. Now they've beaten us in Argentina. They've sort of ticked all their boxes. They've now beaten the 3 teams in the championship for the first time ever. They're actually in with a shot to win the championship. Are they going to pitch on Saturday, do you think?
Yeah, they will actually. All jokes aside, they won't be on the piss. They will show up. It'll be a proper battle. we will win 4 tries to 1.
Okay.
I can feel it already. I'm getting excited. Now, here's what will happen. For the first hour or so, it's going to be pretty low scoring. Shots fired, shots defused. Final 25 minutes, mostly driven by Pollard, actually. There's going to be a lot of tries. Lekkerbecks will score for fun. There'll be some kick chase. It will pay dividends, the slow poison, and it'll be, in the end, a quite comprehensive Bok win. But Argentina will pitch up, and I think it'll be ferociously physical. The battle of the packs will be full on. They have a more seasoned, experienced pack in some ways. Their back 5 is really good. But I think the lineouts will function. I think South African lineouts will be fixed. That is something you can work on in a week. And it also depends a lot about actual timing and pre-throw. I think that setup can be fixed. I also think the referee that we have this time is someone who rewards scrum supremacy, but does go from minute 0 to minute 80 plus. And Ben O'Keefe, I'll say his name, because I think he was harsh treated and the worst treated ref in the World Cup by the host nation, which still hasn't been punished for it. And like there's stuff I know about behind the scenes, even where he and his family suffered some really bad stuff, way more than anyone else that's been talked about, way more than Wayne Barnes. And he is impervious. Ben O'Keefe is exactly the kind of referee mentality you want. He's unawed by the occasion. So I think if a scrum is winning, he will make the scrum win. He's not going to try to do special things and an early shove and you did this. He's going to see it for what it is and just classic Kiwi pragmatism. He'll just say, yeah, there's no reason that scrum would want to go down right now. So he's not going to, overgild the lily, which means that the scrum penalties will be on offer for the whole game. And that's a problem for Argentina. They won't be able to skirt. The other thing that I think is going to happen here is the rested players are used to handling pressure. So if you make Peter Steph du Toit watch a loss, it bleeds his soul. He wants to make that right. Damon Delende is going to be on fire. A guy like Frans Maherba sometimes needs the rest. So in that case, it might have been good. But they're going to be properly ready for this thing. So I think it's going to be a slow poison. The effect of the body blows sometimes happens later, but I think we're not going to see a blowout. It's not going to be what people think. I think when they say Manie will make the thing hum, I think it's more about the exact script that we've been following, which is at first 50, and then that pivotal 20, and then the end. I think is going to be joy for South African rugby.
Hand in hand with the referees is the matter of discipline and cards. We've given away so many cards, and that now with a full-time referee consultant. Argentina, on the other hand, surprisingly, hasn't given away any cards. That might be a thing to factor into this weekend.
Yeah, penalties themselves are not the worst thing in the world. You don't want to have a team that doesn't have any penalties because that means you're not playing hard enough at the breakdown. It's the kind of penalties you give up, but cards are never good. Cards are just by definition never good. So what you want to do is infringe just enough at the right places without getting carded. You want to get away with giving up 3 instead of 7, and you want to use your penalties well, just like in the NBA. You want to use your fouls properly, but you want to use them in places where you cannot get stung by them or because the alternative was worse. We're not doing either of those things. We're getting too many penalties and we're getting too many cards. We're getting cards for having too many penalties. Can I just venture a personal opinion about Jaco Peyper? He never struck me as someone who could run a thing. I think he was a good ref, but I don't know if he's the guy who could walk into a room and command the room. He's never struck me as that. He struck me as the most likable ref, and that he was always all the other refs' favorite friend on the road, but he doesn't have the gravitas that a Don Human has, where when he walks in, you're going to have to listen. you shut up and listen. I just wonder about Jaco's ability, physically, charismatically, EQ, IQ, whatever, all that stuff. I just don't know if he can fix things. I wouldn't pick him to fix it. There's other guys I would pick.
Just like if you screw up in the scrums on Saturday, you're going to be pretty damn scared to go face Daan on Monday. You might not necessarily feel the same way about Yaku. That's what you're getting at.
Yeah. Yeah, no, really. There's something about that with coaches. Apparently, one of the reasons why Rassie picked Jerry Flannery is that Flannery is, he's tough. He's a tough guy. You don't want to come back into the room having given up 4 tries in Santiago. So I'm looking for a much more accomplished defensive effort. I think we're going to take the Argentines on at the line. There's going to be a lot of ball and all. There's going to be no hesitation. No, it's going to be smack, and it's going to be smack often. And I think there's something about Jakob Peiper and his delivery style. Maybe it's too reasonable. Maybe he's not irrational enough. You know, sometimes you become a referee because you're known as a judicial temperament. Sometimes it's hard to then take that and move it in. Yeah, he might just be on the one hand, on the other hand. He might need to kick a chair or something. He might do something more dramatic.
Maybe he must just make the adjustment from being the one that has to be fair to both sides to now being a Springbok coach, for that matter. You know, taking everything personally.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a different approach. I get what you're saying. It makes sense there. Right, so you said not too much of a game. I think the Boks are going to win by at least 20 points. I think they're going to blow them away. And it's simply because, like you said, Rassie took this loss. Rassie gambled. Rassie was caught out, I think, a little bit. I'm not saying that he was stupid gambling. He just tried a couple of things and it didn't work out exactly the way he wanted it. And that he doesn't like that. You know, he likes to be proven right, like you said. And then they're going to have something to prove. And like I said in the Afrikaans video, they're bringing the heavy artillery, the well-rested heavy artillery. They're not like Argentina that have to now fly back from Argentina to come face the Springboks here. And I think it's going to be a pretty hostile Nelspruit or Mbombela crowd on Saturday. It's also one of those closed-up stadiums, a lot of atmosphere.
Yeah.
You know what we did to the All Blacks there.
Yeah.
You should have been here, Harry. I'm sorry, but you attended 4, but you missed the most important one.
At some point, I got to sleep in my own bed for a while. Listen, he did take it personally. And I do think it's going to be a hiding. Like I said, four tries to 1, but we're going to miss some of those conversions. So we're going to have those 4 tries. We're going to make it hard on ourselves to build the scoreboard pressure, but in the end, it's going to be a rout. I'm saying by 15 plus.
I said 20. All right. Okay, Harry, that was a good one. Thank you very much. We'll talk about what happened on Saturday next week when we discuss a bit of a post-mortem. You and I are going to see if we can have a chat directly after the game. Depends. I'm in a place that might not have the best network, but we'll see. I'm going to try for that. And we'll talk about it probably on Sunday, if that suits you.
Yes, and another one of my confessions drops on Sunday. The results of the first confession were great. People had so many questions. I feel like I might have opened up a Pandora's box here, but I have checked with all the clients involved and they're okay with my stories being revealed. So it's going to get even juicier coming up.
I enjoyed my dad asking me, so when's the next confession coming? I thought that just says everything.
A guy sent me a video of his entire family gathered around. They were having dinner and they're going to watch my confession. I was like, oh my God, what did I say? The kids are there.
Yeah. Okay, well, Sunday night, 6 o'clock. That's confession number 2. I've seen it. I liked it. Everybody will like it. So I know more than they do. So look forward to it. Thanks, Harry.
Go Boks. Bury the Pumas, man.
Yeah, I like that thinking.
This is the Lekker Rugby Pod with Harry Jones and MV Welman.